Welcome back. Ken Rutkowski, Voice of Disruption. Thanks a lot for hanging out with us. I'm really excited to introduce our first guest of the show. Tom Bilyeu is joining us. And Tom has disrupted himself multiple times. And we're going to go all the way back to, you're a software guy. Are you a coder?
I started as a software guy unintentionally. And no, I was not a coder, very much not.
What did you go to school for?
Filmmaking. As you would imagine, given my career. Come on, Ken. It's the obvious place to start.
Where are you from originally?
I grew up in Tacoma, Washington.
Okay, and you're here in Los Angeles. Did you go to film school here?
I did, yeah. So I went to USC Film, came at 18, never left.
And what happened? No Spielberg?
No, no Spielberg. So I went to film school, and I failed miserably. And it was actually pretty interesting. So the first part of film school I did really well. And I thought, oh man, I'm going to graduate.
What's the first part? What is that?
So film school is broken into really two parts. First is sort of general education. The second is production. But I'm talking about the production part. So that's then broken into when you're first starting and you've got two classes where you're making films, but they're very early. And I did really well on those. Okay. Then they select from those people 4 out of your entire class get to direct a senior thesis film.
Okay.
I was one of the 4.
Good.
So I thought, hey, I'm on my way. I'm going to make this film. Somebody's going to see it, realize how brilliant it is. I'll get my 3-picture deal. Spielberg City. It's going to be amazing. And this is back in the late 90s where the alternative was you had to raise $100,000 just for like a no-budget film. And I didn't know anybody with money whatsoever. So I graduate film school. My senior thesis film, I totally screwed up. It was terrible. It was beyond embarrassing. It was called Dark Corner.
Dark Corner, and it was just bad.
It was just bad.
Okay.
Like all the things that made my earlier films good were because I didn't think I knew anything, and so I was coming to it really with like love and passion and excitement. And then by the time I got to my senior thesis film, I thought I knew something. And so I just tried to make every shot like a money shot and not realizing that like I didn't know the language of filmmaking well enough to just roll up on set unprepared and wing it. And so.
Don't most filmmakers, as they go through school, think they know it?
It's a good question. I like to believe that somebody like Spielberg maybe went through that phase even before he got to film school. But
that's different. I'm saying the thousands of filmmakers that go through school here, especially here in Los Angeles or New York, they think they know it, and when they start seeing their stuff being shot on a big screen, they realize, man, this is garbage. Or someone tells them it's garbage.
Yeah, that probably eats the vast majority of the people that try it.
Did you know you weren't good at it?
No, I was very surprised by the fact that my last film was terrible. And then...
Dark Corner.
Dark Corner, yes.
It's kind of got the proper name, right?
Yeah, and look, everything about that film I winged. I wrote it in literally about an hour before the submission was due.
Nice job.
Stupid, right? Completely.
Well, then how did you go to software from there?
So I was teaching filmmaking, and these 2 guys came in and took my class, and they said, you're coming to the world with your hand out. If you really want to control all this art, you need to become rich. So we're starting a technology company. Come be our copywriter, but that's just your tuition. This is a startup. You can have any job you want. You just have to become the right person for the job. So I was like, yeah, get rich, control the art. I dig that. Let's do it. So I went to be their copywriter, and for about 6.5 years before I had an emotional crisis, that's what I was doing, and thought that it was always 18 months. It's going to take 18 months. 18 months will sell. 18 months will sell.
All the time.
Right? So all of a sudden it's 6.5 years. I've been telling my wife 18 months for a very long time.
You're married.
Oh, at this point, yeah.
You're married. You're making a little better than minimum wage, probably.
Yep, that's about right.
And you're living in LA, and that LA dream is not happening.
Correct.
Okay.
Very correct.
So how does that turn into a multi-million-dollar opportunity?
Yeah, so it actually ends up being pretty interesting. So they said, you know, you can have any job you want, but you have to become the right person. So I went on a quest for just skill acquisition. I wanted to get good. And I will say I was hardcore about that. So to give you an idea, where the 2 guys that founded the company lived, I got an apartment that was no more than 7 minutes from either of them, so that if they ever called me at 2 in the morning, I could be to their house in 7 minutes or less. Because I wanted them to know, like, this is my life.
But after 6 years.
No. This was from the jump. I was like, if I'm going to do this.
Always you were there.
If I'm going to do this and I'm going to make money, then I'm going to be all in. Between feeling like a total loser and that.
Where did you get out of the dark corner?
That really was a pretty long process. So the gap between feeling like I had completely failed in film school and when I started working with these guys, about 4 years. So in that 4-year period, I need a new way to think about the world to not be depressed.
Tom Bilyeu is joining us. But Tom, you have a following today, and we'll get to what you're doing today. Are you this vulnerable with them? Do you open up and say, hey, man, I was going through a crisis?
100%.
Did you know you were in that crisis?
Yes.
You did. What gave you that indication? Was it because you didn't have a lot of money in the bank? Was it because your passion wasn't being fulfilled? What was it?
It really, your brain chemistry will let you know. So pain is an indicator of something. And I really I never say that I was depressed, but I was flirting with depression. So I would go home, I couldn't afford furniture, and I would just lay on the carpet in my apartment. And I remember that feeling of like the carpet pushing into my face, and when you get up, you can see like the little marks from the carpet. But I was just so lost, so unhappy that I would just lay there and think like, I don't know how to get out of this. And it's somehow worse when you know what you want, but you don't know how to get it.
How'd you do that?
So, well, I mean, that 4-year gap is the beginning of it, but to short circuit it, I went from having a fixed mindset, believing that my talent and intelligence were fixed traits, and believing that while I could get better at the technical side of film, I could never get better at the artistry. You either are an artist or you're not, to believing that's actually not true and that humans are the ultimate adaptation machine and what we're wired to do is grow, learn, and get better. But that you have to be willing to put yourself through a very difficult process. Now, all of this was clumsy. I'm making it sound like it makes sense. Back then, it was just fumbling my way in the dark, doing door-to-door sales, being a telemarketer, starting my own business. But
you're still with that software company.
No, this is all before that.
All before it, but at
These
least
are the
you went
4
through
years.
the nose. You went through the nose and
Yeah.
You know, get out of here type thing. So you felt comfortable with that.
Very much so.
So this company then, when did it explode?
So, well, that was actually the company that never exploded. So the software company ends up never really going anywhere. On paper, by the time that we sold it, I had 10% ownership, so that was probably worth about $2 million on paper.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, well,
you can't take
if it had ever come to anything, that would have been
know.
amazing. So here I am, I'm making more money than I'd ever made just from my salary, and then on paper, I'm a multimillionaire. And it does not feel like that at all. I feel totally unhappy. I'm completely miserable, and I say to my wife, I can't keep doing this, so I know I promised I'd make you wealthy, but like, I'm gonna have to do it another way. I can't do it.
You made a commitment
literally
to your wife
sucking my life out.
to become wealthy.
My wife and my father-in-law, who did not want me to marry his daughter,
okay, got it.
and I assured them both, one day.
How did Quest come out of all this?
Yeah, so I go into my partners at about the 6.5-year mark and catch them completely off guard, and I say, look, I'm so profoundly unhappy right now that even though I'm making money, like, I'm living the cliche of money can't buy happiness. So here's your equity back. You could sell the company for $1 billion tomorrow. You never hear from me. I'm moving to Greece. My wife is Greek. Moving to Greece. I'm going to write again. I'm going to do something that makes me feel alive. I'm going to cut my expenses to the quick and just do something that makes me feel good in and of the moment. And my partners were like, okay. And I walk out the door. I'm literally pulling into my driveway, and I'm on the phone to my wife. I'm like, I did it. We're out. We're going to Greece. This is it. It's going to be amazing. And they start calling through, and I said, babe, let me take this really fast. It's them. And I click over, hello, and they're like, look, we could do this without you, but we don't want to. And we actually feel the same way that you do and haven't wanted to really look at that either. But let's set a 6-month horizon, and we'll set metrics. And if we can get the company to certain metrics in 6 months, we'll keep doing it. If we fail to do that, then we'll sell it. We failed to do that, and so we ended up starting the sales process, which took another 1.5 years. So it was about 8.5 years all in at that company. We sold that, and then decided, the three of us, for very different reasons, to found a nutrition company.
Oh, but you made some money.
I didn't off the sale.
No.
They made
did.
their money back.
So you're still in that situation where
Correct.
you don't have the nice furniture yet.
Well, now I even go backwards. So I was making good money as just an employee of the company. And I said, look, if we're really going to start this other company. So when we sold the tech company, a new CEO came in, and he and I didn't see eye to eye. And he said, marketing is all about spreadsheets. And I said, marketing is storytelling.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I guess we're going to see who's right. And so I went off to start Quest Nutrition, and he stayed at the technology company.
People need to understand, Quest Nutrition, which I have tons of bars in the studio right now, you cooked in your own kitchen.
That's where it started, yeah.
Yeah, your own kitchen. You made, by the way, I'm not sure, do you even still have a favorite bar? Because I know you're on the other side of Quest, but is there one that you crave?
Oh, yeah. I still eat Quest products like a fiend. To be honest, I eat more of the chips than I eat the bars because it's an isolated protein.
I get it.
So, but yeah, I still eat the bars. In fact, there is a bar wrapper in your garbage can.
Is there right now? I know. One of the guys ate it.
So they released the new Hero bars. Those things are ridiculous, like a candy bar. Really, really good.
Quest got to a point before, because I know you guys brought in a bunch of investors on, but you, what, $500 million?
Oh no, we were valued at over $1 billion.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's pretty crazy.
So what's it like when you go from zero to something, when you start having money, when you start having the resources? Does your life change or do you pace it?
No, my life changed, no question. So literally, so imagine this, my wife and I are in the little cram gym in the garage behind our house, and I'm hitting refresh on my banking app, and all of a sudden I just put my hand in the air, and she screamed, and I'm like, the money hit. And literally like that, we were...
What's that mean, the money hit?
So we had taken the investment, and...
What's that mean when the money hits?
Like,
that's not where you go, we have nothing and now we have anything we need.
Yeah, literally.
Does it change that much?
Well, it's interesting. It doesn't change you, and it doesn't change how you feel about anything, but you become capable of creating virtually anything you want. So, and that's where my wife and I had to make a decision. Do we go buy an island and retire and never work again, or do we say, let's build something?
You were actually thinking about buying an island?
Yeah, literally.
In Greece?
I don't know that we would have gone to Greece because they're having some economic troubles.
A lot, actually.
But
there are some good islands that are for sale.
I have no doubt.
So let me make sure I understand. You've gone from film to code to copyright, well, copy and code, to nutrition. Through this whole process, you created all these other brands. You turned the mirror onto yourself and said, it's time to create your own brand.
Yeah.
Being you.
Well, and that's a part of it. So to be honest, I don't think of me as the brand.
Oh,
so
you
I'm
gotta
the
be
face of the
kidding me.
brand. Well, so follow me in my logic here. So what I'm about is badge brands. That's all I care about. So originally, there's a reason we named the company Impact Theory. We named the show Impact Theory. It's not the Tom Bilyeu show. But here's why.
Okay.
No one's going to get Tom Bilyeu tattooed on themselves. I need it to be an idea that
Which you
outlives
have
me,
right now. If you actually look at the logo that's on your shirt. But you are still the face.
No question.
Okay.
For 100%, very intentional. I'm doing personal branding.
It was called The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
Correct, and it's Impact Theory with Tom Bilyeu, for sure, for sure.
That's your brand.
Yep.
And you are this face that I see everywhere. Your Instagram is you. Your social media is you. You feeling comfortable there?
Yes, like that is...
It's natural.
It's not natural for me, and
Really?
I have high anxiety that I've had to really learn to deal with. The real thing is, the Tom Bilyeu brand is a marketing vehicle for a studio. And the studio is what I'm building.
Hold on to that.
Very clear.
We're going to get to that, okay? Because I want to talk about where your mastermind program is going.
For sure.
Because you've learned all these things from the other past failures. But if you look at your past lives, if you go to Quest specifically, was there a roller coaster ride very similar to your other lives and your other companies? Or was that more of a just straight up trajectory?
It was a rocket ship.
So you've learned failure and success at the same time.
Definitely.
Which one taught you more?
You learn more from failures, but even in the success, there's so many failings going on that you're responsible for, that you can look at and say, hey, we're succeeding in spite of this failure. So I would say the thing that I really learned from were the failures, even though many of them came in the midst of a tremendous success.
And most of those failures, were they internalized inside the business or were they external of the business?
Most of them were internal.
And were they personnel?
A lot of them, yeah. And I would say, well, some of that, but I would just say, like, when you scale, you start having a whole different set of problems based on a skill set that you didn't need when you were small, and we grew so fast that I didn't know how to manage a growing organization. I know how to lead when you can see me and you can see how hard I work, and I can be there to encourage. But once I'm sort of in an office somewhere and I'm not able to touch all the employees, I at that time certainly did not know how to do that.
But do you find yourself overcompensating at times to make sure that you do have the strength to take on some of these really difficult processes? Anytime I meet people that are in positions of power, have to almost put on a facade because they're scared inside, and they want everyone on the outside to feel like they can trust them and they have that confidence. Do you ever do that?
I use that, and I think that's part of what made me increasingly ineffective as we got bigger and bigger, for sure. And so now I'm doing the exact opposite. So because I want to get big, because I want Impact Theory to rival Disney in size, scope, everything, I understand what we have to do to scale. And so if you've read Ray Dalio's Principles, he outlines pretty well like what you need to have a very healthy organization. And the one thing I think is common in virtually every company in the world is like that people off in the corner bitching. That it's so insanely toxic. So the question is, how do you stop it? And I think his book to me is the prototype for how to stop that kind of thing.
But stopping it means it's top down. Meaning it has to come from the top, and it's got to trickle down from everywhere.
It starts at the top, but he talks a lot about how things have to come from the bottom up as well, and that you've really got to open yourself up to criticism, and you've got to be willing to admit what you're good at and what you're not good at.
So this is what I want to do. When we come back, I want to talk about the studio that you said is going to rival Disney.
Let's do it.
Which is audacious, right? Yeah. But you've managed to actually be one of the biggest, let's call it a vacuum of viewers. You bring in more viewers to the clips that you've done, and they're not long clips. They're little short clips on social media, not just YouTube. Yeah. I want to talk about that formula, okay? People want to find out more. Where do they go for you?
At Tom Bilyeu across all social platforms.
Everything. It's all out there. So when we come back, we'll find out about the secret sauce and the formula that Tom's doing in this new studio that will rival Disney. Ken Rutkowski, Tom Bilyeu, you're listening and hanging out with us right here on The Voice of Disruption. We'll be right back.